Welcome to the X Podcast. It's so great to be with you here today, however you're consuming this material. We're glad you're here. My guys are here. Russ and Tim, how are you doing?
Doing great.
I'm good.
How about you?
You just got back from vacation.
Yeah.
Hanging out with Mickey.
Yeah. Mickey wasn't there.
Oh, okay.
Mickey's
No Disney?
Mickey's in hiding. He has COVID.
Really? You guys are Disney people.
No, we went to
You
Disney.
love Disney.
We went to Disney.
You always wear the shirts.
What are you talking about?
Disney shirts. You wear one like once a week.
You know the
What are you
picture-
talking
you know
about?
the pictures in your office?
I was forced to wear a shirt. We all had to wear a matching shirt on one day.
That's cute.
It was. So we have matching shirts.
Well,
Now.
it's good to have you back.
I'm glad to be back.
Looking like a golden chocolate chip cookie.
And I'm in the shape
Yeah.
of a chocolate chip cookie.
I did. It was hot. It was. We actually thought it was going to be, in the 80s. It was in the 90s, but it said real feel 105.
Oh, that's nice.
So walking around a couple of those parks, you're just dripping sweat.
Oh. Still have to wear a mask down there or
Nope.
no? Wow.
Nice.
On transportation, you did.
Really?
Yeah.
'Cause you're
So
close
only.
quarters? Or?
It actually doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
A lot of the rules didn't make sense. So we were. This was our. This is where we had the big question mark. So any of their transportation. So if you take the transportation from the airport to their parks, or to the hotels, transportation from the resorts to the parks, even the Skyliner, and you're with your own party. They say you're. I mean, no one does, but you're supposed to. And it's funny because, okay, I get it. Maybe you're sitting on a bus, you're in close quarters with other people, and then we all get off the bus, and everybody takes off their mask, and then we're packed into this show. They don't have a lot of them, but like we went to the Lion King show at Animal, and there's like 3,000 people all inside of this place without masks. And then you walk out onto into the street, and it's shoulder to shoulder, and you're jammed with people you don't know. I'm like, well, we definitely need to wear a mask on the bus. So, but I understand they
man.
probably just have to have some rules.
The one
somewhere.
place in Florida with masks.
It is, and it's really just transportation, though. We're glad all the rest of it, no masks.
What a strange world we live in. Mm-hmm. There's a whole bunch of, and I think maybe we can get into that today and talk.
Mickey?
Mickey, maybe that would probably be a funner conversation. But I just think we should address maybe the different things specifically that are going on with vaccines, because I know people love when we talk about vaccines.
Yeah.
But there's a couple, depending on when you're listening to this, interesting recent developments. First, there's a lot of stuff going on in the NFL, National Football League, with vaccines, where you've had coaches fired because they refuse to get vaccinated. And then you have two different types of protocols that they're pushing for their players, one set for the vaccinated players and one set for the unvaccinated players. And what they're basically doing is trying to make it like a ruthless protocol if you haven't been vaccinated.
Force you to get it.
To force you to get it.
You also lose money.
Oh,
So
yeah.
they've also made it so that if your team cannot play because an outbreak and you are part of it and you're unvaccinated, not only will the team suffer for it, they'll get a loss, not like before, and you will get fined. And you'll lose money. I mean, it's coming down hard.
Players have said that they would retire if they were forced to be vaccinated.
Wow.
You think about all of there's been a couple recent developments as far as the federal government and what they're planning to. I'm not even familiar if it's something they're doing or if they've talked about doing. But one was to go door to door to kind of encourage people and to promote the vaccine and sending people out almost like the census and sending people out to go door to door, which I personally don't have much of a problem with as far
Kind of
as
like a Johnson & Johnson Jehovah's Witness plan.
well, it works, I guess. But I don't have a problem with that because I know that there's people that don't have people to
So
take
wait,
them
go
to
to door to door and give the vaccine?
I don't
No,
even really
evangelize.
know.
Or just go evangelize, proselytize?
Yeah.
Process what?
Proselytize?
So there's that.
It's been all over the news.
We're getting back into school, and so there's a lot of conversations with do we make K through 12, do we make them wear masks now with the whole Delta variant going around?
Colleges are debating mandates.
Colleges have. So Indiana University did. I mean, they already came out with a mandate that said you had to be vaccinated to be in person. And then there was a group of, what's interesting, I think it's more than just the different private and public sectors that are talking about it, is what's happening in the courts. So Indiana University said this fall you have to have it. Student body group went and filed with a federal court, and that was turned down. So their case was turned down. Same thing happened in Houston. There was a large hospital down in Houston. This was actually a long while ago that was mandating all of their employees to be vaccinated. And they gave them a certain amount of time. They kept telling them, and they said, if you're not vaccinated within 2 weeks, then you're going to be fired.
Well, Mount Carmel,
And Mount Carmel just
where
did.
my wife
works
works,
there.
they
just
mandated vaccines.
And so, but what's interesting in that hospital in Houston, they filed a lawsuit, the group of people collectively, and the judge did not accept their lawsuit.
Yeah.
And so I believe a little bit over 150 of them lost their jobs.
Wow.
I don't know if that's, that's one of the last things I read. And then you got federal agencies that are now doing it. So Los Angeles County, New York, they basically have said that you have to have a vaccination, or if not, you have to get a test weekly to come back.
So what's the viability of all this? I find it funny because, I mean, that's not funny. I think that, I don't know why, I've just put out where I stand. I don't really care what people do with their bodies, and I think that you should have the freedom to put inside of you what you want to put inside of you, and there's no government that should probably make you do that. What I have a problem with is...
Although you've been vaccinated. Not,
Yeah, but that was
not,
my
not,
choice.
No, you were vaccinated when you were a kid because the government mandated that you had to be vaccinated to go to school.
There we go. I like where you're going
So
with
I'm
that.
just saying that's
I think that's
existed
bold.
for quite a while.
It's almost not a new debate.
It's
just
not.
just the level and extent is different.
Well, the difference is this vaccine is expedited
Right.
in its production. And
Did you see what the Department of Justice came out with, their opinion on this? So they had been asked by private and public agencies. So the Department of Justice, what is your take on employers and agencies requiring
I saw
people,
this.
mandating vaccinations? Again, it's an opinion when the Department of Justice comes out with
Right.
it. But their opinion was that the law does not preclude employers from mandating vaccination of its employees or agencies of its employees, even with emergency use. That was their opinion. I mean, it doesn't necessarily hold water like a judge, in an appellate court or somebody that actually gives one and then they use precedence, but it is pretty significant. The Department of Justice, they came out and they basically said if employers want to mandate vaccines for their employees, that they don't think that even the emergency use, because that's a big question.
they think that they should be allowed to
They
do
think
that.
they said they
I mean,
don't
that's
think
the
that
essence
it
of a
would be
free
problem.
market, right? I mean, if you own a business,
Yeah.
you can do what you want. And so, I think it's fascinating. I don't know. Let me just, because you just made that point about government mandating vaccines for a long time.
Their federal government is going to probably mandate all federal employees to get it. That has not been released,
I
but
heard
saying
that in
by
the
the time
news the
this
other day.
podcast episode gets released, we may know that. Joe Biden's supposed to actually maybe make a decision on that possibly tomorrow.
Should we be freaking out about it, though? Tell me why.
Should we be freaking out about what?
About all these vaccine mandates.
So, are you asking the question in regards to the vaccine, or actually more of it's more about the real freaking out that people probably have may not be about the vaccine. It might be about the fact that
About the
this is the mandate.
Yeah.
The mandate. It's a great question. What do you think?
Well, I have a
Russell?
vaccine, and I don't have a.
We should just go around the table. I'm vaccinated.
Well, I'm vaccinated.
I'm vaccinated.
Okay.
We might have all got vaccinated for different reasons.
Right. I had COVID and still got vaccinated because it sucked, and I
I was vaccinated and then got COVID.
heard about. Oh, I'm
How
sorry.
does that work? But
Russ, you've been super quiet.
It's
he hasn't got his second shot yet. I'm just kidding.
It's
got it a
been
while
4
back.
months.
Oh, trust me, I felt
4
the
months.
second shot for about 5 days.
Yeah, me
no,
too.
2 days.
Did it hurt?
You know what?
This sorry.
The needle broke.
The needle broke.
It's it's one of those things I've thought about long and hard, and I don't know because I'm passionate about two things. The health of our nation is paramount, and the freedom of our nation is paramount. And, like you said, I agree with you. I just think individuals should have the freedom to choose what goes in their bodies. But then it's tricky because freedom goes both ways. Because like you said, an employer has the freedom to say, no, I'm going to ensure a healthy work environment. Right. So I think when you're talking about mandates, you have to distinguish between the government and private entities and sectors. It's surprising to me that the government is gaining ground this quickly. To me, just an across-the-board federal mandate does not have a lot of legal defensibility. That does not have a lot of legal defensibility. I think you would have to show the Supreme Court a severe loss, that there would be no sustainability of certain important parts of our society and segments of our society long-term if they didn't. Probably an interesting test case would be like drug testing. Like the federal government cannot mandate drug testing across the board, but they can mandate that those that work at nuclear power plants do, right, because of the severity of the problem. And so I think there's got to be, the intrusiveness of the government has to be commensurate with the extent of the issue. And so I think it's so tricky. It's right now, I think it's that balance between informed consent and the rights of individual companies. And especially when you get in the health sectors and the, school sectors, they obviously have more leeway, because health sectors, they're dealing, you're not just saying, hey, we want to make sure our work environment's healthy. You're also saying our patients, who are most of the time going to be compromised, we want to make sure they're healthy. Schools are in that, what's it called? Loco parentis, where they have that they're usually given really significant leeway by the Supreme Court because they're ensuring the safety and health of children. So all that
we don't have vaccines that are approved for children up to a certain age.
Right.
I mean, 12 and older with one vaccine.
It is interesting to say. I mean, I know the.
So you say mandate?
I'm not saying mandate.
That's what you.
I'm saying I have no strong opinion. I have two strong convictions, and that's the freedom of Americans and the health of our nation.
Man,
and how that lands, I have no idea.
Such a politician.
I have
love
no
the way
idea.
you skated all of that.
I don't know.
No.
I mean, it's so.
It's interesting. Hospitals have mandated their employees get vaccinated for a long time. That's nothing new.
Well, in schools, again, we talked about like one of my friends would say,
they're not making the military get this right now. The federal government, even if they make all the government agencies. One thing I read said they were not going to force the military to get it right now.
I mean, Andrew's in the military. I think they're going to force her to get it. She was just pregnant and breastfeeding.
Is that because she works in the medical group?
I mean, other than it being expedited, is there any reason in the future that we won't look at this any different than polio? Right. Like we've mandated vaccines for decades, so we got to realize that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, polio, because of how devastating it was, has now been eradicated. Do we not eventually want the same thing for COVID? I know right now it's different because it's been expedited. We're talking about adults in the middle of their life with their freedom.
Well, I have more of a problem. I think what's interesting is most people right now would whether you're Republican or Democrat, I think would land where we're landing. You should be able to choose your own decisions for your family and for. I mean, you should. I think a lot of people land like that. Yeah. I think there's a history with different ethnic groups of vaccines who are more hesitant to take them because of
they were experimented on.
Exactly, and the devastating effect that it's had on certain ethnic groups. And it's like,
which happened to be some of the population that's lagging behind in vaccinations.
Yeah, because it's a generational thing.
Yeah,
and I think that's valid. I have a problem with lowest common denominator politics. Which is where I feel like we wrestle a lot in American politics right now, which is I'm going to go after the person who I assume to be unintelligent and incapable of understanding how this works.
Right.
I think it produces a low level of thinking. I think that's where we get the whole door-to-door, both the door-to-door vaccine thing and the reaction to the door-to-door vaccine thing on the other side have really frustrated me.
Yeah.
Because I think I know I can spin that to be a hugely pervasive tactic by a liberal federal government. And I also think that it's the job of the party in power to explain, because when my wife works in the at-home medical field, and there are people who have no way to get to a place where there's a vaccine, and so I think that that's not a horrible tactic for those people, but it's their job to create a high-level perception or argument as to why this is
Right.
going to be effective for people. Not saying it's just this all low-level
Well,
conversation.
even the tone that has come with this has turned very negative very quickly. I don't appreciate that. That it's even there was a comment that I read that I believe came from the White House that was almost like, if you haven't already gotten this, you're a whole lot less intelligent than I thought you were.
Yeah, that was Joe Biden.
Yeah,
Said that.
I was trying to be real general and
it was
vague,
all
but I
over
didn't
the news
get.
today.
But I didn't want to get the quote wrong and say it.
was
But I'm
all
just
over
saying
the news.
that's pretty.
That's not helpful.
That's just not helpful. And I mean, it's the whole. I almost like it seems that it's become very antagonistic, so that we're gonna make it difficult for you. We're gonna make it hard. And I don't know that tactic is going to work on the people that you're actually trying to reach. It's just going to turn more off. That's what it
I
to
think
me
that's
feels like.
true. I totally agree with that. And I don't know. I just don't appreciate. I was talking with a buddy of mine who worked for a Republican congressman in Washington D.C. He moved back into town because he was sick of everything. And he worked for some, I can't remember the guy's name, for some guy in the House, like a really coveted job, like was about to be the chief of legislation for some Arizona Republican House member. And he just talked about the absolute debauchery that goes on in the city, and how I think when I say this is, I don't believe that the part where vaccine mandates, quote unquote, and this whole conversation, the part where it really starts to rub me the wrong way, especially doing what we do in the church context, is that people are starting to look to the government and what they say to do or not do as moral authority, or your political party.
Right.
And guess what? I'm not saying that. I'm sure there's some really great people that are in office, and I think that they all should be honored because they're elected positions of leadership. But I don't know. I don't. They're not my moral authority.
Right.
And so you can't be making moral arguments as to whether you're a bad person, you're a bad neighbor, you're a bad this or
Right.
that if you haven't. You're a bad coworker if you haven't gotten a vaccine, because I mean, if you've gotten a vaccine, in a lot of ways, you're putting faith in the government. You're putting faith in the companies that make the vaccine. You're putting faith that they know what they say they know, and that it's not going to do certain things to you in the future. You
Right.
know, I mean, I've had
Yeah, to me, their role should be more information and information clarification, not and you decide what you're going to do with this. The part where I don't envy their job, that I'm sure is frustrating, is we talked about a lot about last week, in an age of misinformation, and people don't know what to believe, and people listen to pseudoscientists and Facebook more than they do, and any person that it seems like, whether it was President Trump or President Biden, that's a health official, people just slander, and they're either a saint or they're Satan.
right.
And so I do resonate. Part of what I've wondered before is it ethical how much, because I know people that have said they're really frustrated because they feel like, man, the government has an agenda and want everybody to get vaccinated. I don't as much have a problem if they feel like, man, we're watching what's happening worldwide, we're seeing where we're going. I don't have a problem as much of them encouraging and saying, hey, here is what the great bulk of the data and the science is saying. Here's why it's important. But I do agree with you. I think there's got to be a line where you don't moralize, and you definitely don't condemn, and you don't belittle anyone who happens to differ or say, no, I don't feel comfortable yet.
Yeah, and I think I was watching the Olympics, and they said that only 1/5 of the Japanese population is fully vaccinated.
Wow.
And it made me for a second think, well, as far as vaccinations go, if you think that this is a win, depending on your view
Yeah.
of it,
We're doing pretty well.
I mean, we're pretty well
60-some
vaccinated.
percent.
Yeah,
Comparatively.
especially our size
Compared to
Right.
Japan.
I mean,
Compared to Japan,
which
yes.
is a pretty well advanced country.
Yeah.
And so I'm just, I don't think we're in some horrendous place where, as far as the other thing, and I'm interested to hear you guys' thoughts on this.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I just think it's for everyone to be fully vaccinated, I think is an absurd and unobtainable goal. And so I think that at some point we're going to have to acknowledge that as a country to go, not 100% of people are going to be vaccinated, whether they choose to not be vaccinated, whether they're against vaccinations, whether they don't have access to it because they have no family and they're bedridden in their home.
Right.
And they receive home care, like, or you're underserved or you're impoverished or you're homeless. I mean, whatever it is, there's going to be a certain portion of not just our country, but international travelers that come inside and out of our country who are not going to be vaccinated. And not everybody is going to be vaccinated. So why are we going to demonize people that we know are going to exist forever?
Yeah. Well, a lot of it seems to be really, on another hand, bad timing, because I think what Bill Gates and Dr. Fauci originally said was all we needed was about 30 to 40%. If we had about 30-40%, we'd be fine.
Herd
And
immunity.
And then I heard 50.
Well-
then I heard 70.
well, the bad factor,
now we need.
and who knows what all's gone into this, but what seems to be one of the major players is right in the middle where it seems we reached that 40% mark. Delta variant comes along. That's, they say, twice as transmittable.
Yeah, like millions and millions
deadlier.
of people in India go and get the virus, and you don't think that it's but that's just the nature of viruses.
Right.
Is the thing is we're
Yeah.
gonna, and this is what the people who are in the medical field would say, we're gonna have COVID-19.
Oh, it's
We're
here to
gonna have
stay,
COVID.
yeah.
There's gonna be COVID season.
Right.
Because it's
You
gonna.
probably have to get a new vaccine every year because it's mutating.
Yes.
And the longer that you don't have, the longer that you don't get rid of it, which I don't think you'll ever get rid of it, and as long as there's hosts, they will continue. It will continue to mutate.
Right.
Yeah.
And so probably like.
But
all
I think
the
that's
other,
probably
like the
making
flu
them
and other
frustrated
ones,
because
influenza, you'll have to get.
it's still shown that there isn't a level of effectiveness against the Delta variant. And so I think that's probably where I think what we're seeing is desperation. And out of desperation, people and politicians and leaders are trying certain tactics.
I think the issue that I have right now
I'd love
is
to tell you guys some of the stuff my God told me about DC. Oh, you'd not believe it.
well.
Tell us.
I think one
You
of
wanna
the
hear
well. Are we allowed to
Sure.
hear about it on the microphones?
Of course.
Oh,
I mean,
I was just,
why
let me
would
just
you
say this.
not?
Let me just say this. This I don't love. Okay, I feel like our nation is kind of. I don't love the fact. So the CDC just released updating guidelines based on certain populous areas where there's having high infection rate of the Delta variant. They just changed their guidelines to now recommending that vaccinated people wear their masks indoors. And I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to take. I think when you have this much of a divisive situation, I think you're going to see some real kickback to this, because I think the whole idea is that if you got everybody who has wanted, I won't say everybody, but for the most part, people who've wanted to get vaccinated could have gotten vaccinated. Okay, as long as they had access to drive. So I understand that's a small percentage of people.
right.
Everybody that's wanted to has been able to get vaccinated. So to me, we're at a point where the other people don't want to. So to me, if your hospital systems aren't overrun, now I know that I'm just saying, it's kind of like what I think you said. It is kind of, it's just almost crazy. Like we're not going to get everybody vaccinated and get to herd immunity and get this thing to starve out. It's not going to happen. So why are we talking about going back to that? I mean, I've known several people, myself possibly included, because I can't tell the Delta variant, and I was vaccinated and then got it. What was it? End of May, June, when I was going on vacation, actually, and lost my sense of taste and smell. But other than that, had a few like head congestion, head cold type thing for like a day and a half, and that was fine. And so I know several people that have gotten it after being vaccinated, the Delta variant, assuming it's that one, and that's what 85% of I think all cases are now right now in the U.S. And
It's crazy.
And
it was 2% in April or May.
yeah,
about
and now
83%
80-some%. Yeah, and there most people, it's been very minor. It
That have
has
been vaccinated.
They've been
been
vaccinated.
vaccinated. It's been proven. I mean, I read this study that said in May, and I think it was like possibly even in June, that it was like 99 point something% of all the deaths of COVID were unvaccinated people.
Yeah.
It's not vaccinated people. It's unvaccinated
But,
people that
and
are dying. And so if that's the choice, I mean, I read this sad article. Again, I don't want to I don't know how much of this stuff, because when you read articles, you don't know how much they can be blown out. But there's one doctor who's had several unvaccinated people who have died, and they've had to intubate them. And this doctor basically has people and they're telling the family that basically the patients are looking at them as they have to intubate them, and they're begging for the vaccine. It's like it's too late. I can't give you the vaccine. That when they're telling the family that they all believed it was a hoax. You know, again, I don't know how much. I mean, again, you read an article. I don't know that that's every patient and everything they have, but that's kind of sad. That's really sad to hear.
Very sad.
And
but you can't force your views on people.
Yeah.
But
then should you be able to force the masks now that the vaccine has been proven effective and it has worked for the most part, except for the Delta variant? And what I'm saying is this is a real challenge now, because if you are vaccinated, you're sitting there going, I went and got vaccinated. And now you're going to turn around and think about if you're a business owner, if you're whatever, and you're going to try to enforce a mask mandate again, knowing that 40% of the people that maybe employees, maybe customers of this won't get vaccinated. And I'm sitting here going, I'm not at risk at real severity of going to the hospital. I'll take my chances.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that, and then when you got schools this fall, I mean, that's going to be real interesting, because I'll tell you, I think because the vaccine is out, and I think it's going to create a whole new social war when it comes to this. I do, because I think people are going to have a real problem with it going, we all got vaccinated.
Right.
So now, because of the few that won't, you're going to now mandate this.
I think some great takeaways for this section of the conversation, I think, is that you really, we got to decide what this is all about, because the whole shutdown originally it was so the hospitals didn't get overrun.
Yes, that's what I remember originally.
I mean,
they don't have capacity.
They didn't have
Dealing with
capacity. We got extra beds everywhere. We got extra ventilators being made. We don't have enough in circulation. We don't have enough PPE. And
if we don't all do something,
we got to slow the curve.
People are going to die. Slow the curve.
Slow the curve.
So we did.
And so now that's over, and I think transitioning into life where COVID is a part of our yearly rhythm, or I think that's just going to be a transition. I'm not a medical expert, of course, but I think that, I mean, what are we going to do? Shut the country down every time? Shut the world down? Shut travel down? Everybody stay home? I think that I think there's just as much of an argument as you could say that the effects of all of these protective measures that we're taking are more harmful than the disease for a vaccinated person, and so like you're saying that this isolation is better for people.
Yeah.
I mean, so let's decide what this is all about.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is, like, if you can't be forcing people to get a vaccine and get all mad at them because you can't be doing that, right? I mean, you can't force your views on people.
Yeah.
And I think that we're going to see some sort of political response in midterms or next presidential election based off of this, because it's just it's an interesting time we live in, and I'll tell you why, because we have a couple other big things that are going on, and we've got there's been the Olympics that have been on for probably a week now, or since Friday. Is that right?
Yeah, last Friday.
Depending on when you're listening to this.
It was sad. Simone Biles pulled out.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about that.
I watched it. My family are big gymnastics fans because my daughter did it for so long. So we watched the women's gymnastics last night.
You could tell something was up.
Yeah. In her.
Did you see them going through all of the different things she was doing, and how, oh my gosh, we've never seen her miss like that.
Yeah.
We've never seen her not land like that.
It was a mental thing. And it happens. And I remember my daughter doing gymnastics. There are moments where it's not a physical thing. It gets in your head. I remember
when you're flipping around in the air like that.
Well, I remember we went to state meet for when she was level 5 or 6. I can't remember how old she was. And she got, like, in her head, she wasn't going to go over the vault. You know, I think at that time, it might have been level 6 or 7. Like, I don't know if you do round offs onto them at that level or not, but it's like there is this mental block.
Yeah.
And so I remember her lining up for vault runs, and she'd run down, and then she'd just run right around it.
Wow.
And you couldn't get her to go on it.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and part of that, honestly, was probably a little bit of nervousness of wanting to impress you because you'd won all those
Oh,
gymnastics
of
medals.
course. I mean, I was
back when you were in high
the
school.
rings and everything. I was quite a stud, but just so you guys know, that was him being sarcastic.
On the German
But I
gymnastics
tell you
team.
one thing that we had a conversation about that was. What did he say?
That
Say
was
German gymnastics.
When you were in
The German national team?
overseas, yeah.
Yes, I was in the German national team. Oh, we lost him. But that's, by the way, that's the Russ laugh. We enjoy it very
Sweet.
much.
All you gotta do is this.
Yeah.
I want to see you run down. What is that called?
What?
The thing where you jump off the spring and you.
Springboard?
Can you just show us something
Yeah,
for
what do
those
you want
watching
to
on YouTube?
But I mean, one of the things that we found more interesting about
back
about
into
this
it.
conversation was that, like her pulling out of the team competition, she pulled out of the individual all-around competition. Still unknown at this point in time we record this whether or not she's going to compete in the individual events. You know, I understand. At first, I was like, "Why are you doing this?" But you know, even they were saying on the announcing it, they're like, and you can imagine if you're in the air and you are flipping, like there's this mental thing, and she was like losing. Like you watch the one vault where she did, and she comes out of it. It looks like you see her eyes almost like not catching
Like she
up.
didn't know when she was hitting the
like
ground.
it's dangerous.
Yeah.
The stuff they do. I remember my daughter was doing the big uneven bars and doing giants on it, and you're up 10 feet in the air, 12 feet in the air, and then you're swinging your body full height up in the air. Like you can get hurt really badly. So I think she made the right move by doing it. And one of the things that we talked about was the change in culture in gymnastics now versus 10, 20 years ago.
That's
and
interesting.
how much
Back
this,
when you did it.
How much this? Yeah, back when I did. How much this plays into it because we talked about the example of Carrie Strug. I don't know if you remember Carrie Strug. It's before your time. You were probably a little baby. You were probably
the one
you were
that's
probably sucking your thumb.
She's the one that got carried
never
off
did
the
that.
mat or something like that.
Yeah. So Carrie Strug, I think it was.
Is that
am I
her,
right?
like the famous like
yeah.
Helen-
Caroli is carrying her,
Yeah.
and I think this was '94 Olympics. But she gets injured. She's like the last one to go on the vault. They need a certain score or need whatever land to get gold. She does her vault, lands, lifts her 1 foot up immediately. I don't know if she broke it, did whatever, but I mean, it was like this, you know, he carries her off like hero type of thing. She was a hero. Later, she tells the story, no, like she was injured. It was not an option. She was doing the vault. Like it was him carrying her was like, oh, it looks like this touch. No, it was a different culture. It was abusive. And so I think Simone Biles, I think one of the things that's an interesting statement is for her saying, I need to pull out of this for mental reasons or, you know, doing this. And there's not the backlash of coaches that would basically
Try to make her.
yeah, into doing something maybe dangerous. I think that's kind of a more interesting thing versus what the culture was.
There was backlash though.
Oh,
I mean, she got tons of crap.
She did, but I mean, the weight that she carries, I mean, she is the Michael Jordan of basketball, the Tom Brady of football. I mean, so everybody, when they think about Summer Olympics, they're like Simone Biles and gold. Can you imagine that pressure?
No.
Unreal.
Well, I just the reaction on social is what I watched, and you have the people who are like, I can't believe she do that to her team, and then you have the people who've experienced things like that, who, and I'm just so overwhelmed by the gap of people who understand and don't. You have, I mean, the people that do understand, whether it's like relating to the sports aspect of it, like even in baseball, we call it getting the yips.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'd play second base, and it's the shortest throw on the field, but sometimes you get in your head, like, that it just, you can't see it. You know, there's a guy for the Cincinnati Reds that's playing right now. His name's
Votto?
Eugenio Suarez. No, Votto's killing the ball.
I know he is.
But
Sorry.
Suarez, 5 home runs in 4 games. They just traded for 3 relief pitchers today.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm excited. But Suarez, he led the league in home runs with 50-something, like over 50 home runs 2 years ago. This year, he's hitting 186 or something.
Wow.
And just is a shell of himself. He can't find it.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
there's only one way to get through that stuff, and that's to go through it. But, man, to have all those cameras on you and for it to be the Olympic stage and for you to know that you're going to let your team, that's a big decision.
And most of the time, gymnastics is solely an individual sport.
Yeah. But you can
Here's
see
here's
it
the
on her
one time
face.
though. Oh yeah, but here's the one time where it is a team,
Yeah.
and you're letting your team down. That's a tough. I mean, that's hard.
That is tough.
That's hard to do.
But you're right, man. It's dangerous. And you look at them doing that, just dangerous stuff. But I'm shocked at the amount of people who have really overwhelming, like stories with anxiety and panic attacks. And one of the things I retweeted was, you guys watch that show on ESPN? I'll talk to you.
Yeah,
I do.
He doesn't even know what ESPN means.
Around
Listen,
the horn.
I can read minds.
Around the Horn, the host.
Yeah,
of that
oh, yeah, I
show,
watched Around the Horn.
Tony Reale. Well,
Tony-
he
yeah.
had. If I'm remembering right, I think that he has some tragic story where like his daughter died or something.
Oh, really?
Or got sick or something. I probably should know that before I say it, but ever since then he's had like this crippling bouts with prolonged anxiety attacks. And this guy hosts a daily show.
Yeah.
So he tweeted this big thread and just talking about how, relating what he went through with what Simone Biles was going through, and how he was having one of his prolonged anxiety attacks out of nowhere, couldn't. So where he's pushed through and done the show before with that, he asked, another person on the team to see if they could step in. They did a great job. And the people in response to that, with the venom coming at him and people
crazy?
calling him emotional and all, it's like, wow. I was
Well,
listening.
what's
who
sad?
understand
What's
and
sad
don't
about
understand the
this
mental health thing. It's
is
just
and
crazy.
that it just goes to show when it comes to sports and other things that people care far more about the accolade or the accomplishment than they do the athlete.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
think
That
about it. I
Naomi
mean,
Osaka.
yeah,
Same deal.
she's out in the early round, and it just goes to show that we as a society, I think we devolve when we get to a place where you bring home a gold medal or don't come home, like that type
Yeah,
of
as a human being.
attitude is just it's sad. And
Speaking of
really-
mental health, you've been working on some things.
Oh boy, we're getting into that, huh? Yeah.
I'm just curious, any updates for
Yeah.
our family?
I started
Not our family.
I
but
started another, not you and me, but
Yep.
the general
Right.
capital F family. I started a podcast.
Come on.
Yeah. So it's
How can people find it?
Yep.
you can go on wherever you get your podcast, and you can look up My Daily Lift, and that'll be my podcast.
So it's all about what different exercises you do every day. So like, okay, I got to start with
No.
deadlifts, and then there's like the next day is squats, and then the next day is bench. Is that what you mean by daily
That's
lift? or-
not it. Basically, it's a short encouragement or meditation, uplifting show, to where I'm gonna kind of give you just an encouragement, a challenge, an uplifting statement to speak over your day, and you can speak over yourself. And the whole goal is that every day you'd have a new episode, where whether you're driving to work or whether you're getting ready in the morning or you're about to, who knows, read your Bible, whatever you're doing. It's not necessarily a Christian based show, but I derive a lot of it, most of it, from Scripture, and I refer to it as almost a moral authority. And
I should read the
sort of
tagline.
book. Read it.
It says, "One word holds the power to a better future. Start your day with words that fuel your potential."
That's
My
good.
Daily Lift with Kevin Illich.
Well,
Yeah.
two things.
sounds like
Number one, can I just say,
Stuart
Sorry, go ahead.
Smalley and is it the same thing as Stuart Smalley? And
Who's that?
Do you know what I'm talking about? Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
Two things. One, maybe one day or today we'll get into SpaceX. Can I just say, SpaceX has my official favorite tagline in the
Really?
universe. No pun intended. It is, "The sky is no longer the limit."
I like that.
Loved that. I saw that. I don't
wanted-
even know what they do, to be honest, but I love that.
I wanted to invest in them, but it's private.
But I want to say, I listened to one of your episodes this morning, and it is excellent and meaningful. I think it's going to change people's lives.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's gonna be a challenge because it's a new piece of content every single day.
Wow.
So that's gonna be a challenge for me. But
You've recorded how many?
I think by the time this episode comes out, I'll have 14
Ooh.
done. Maybe 15 if you count the trailer. But
So you could binge them.
yeah, just to have
How long?
content
How
out
long
for
is each
people.
episode?
Each
Give or take?
episode anywhere from 4 to 9 minutes long.
Okay.
So dependent.
Nice.
So it'll be short, and even if you want to turn it on and just let the whole thing run and just fill your car with encouragement when you're driving
it. I
somewhere.
love that.
It's awesome.
It's for any age, for any person with any beliefs. I mean, it's really for any context. So
My Daily Lift.
My Daily
My
Lift.
Daily
Subscribe.
Lift.
Subscribe
On
to it.
Apple, Spotify,
everywhere.
Subscribe.
Everywhere.
That's
You can
awesome,
go and
man.
see it. So
That's
thank you
encouraging.
guys.
Cool.
I just love plugging my stuff on here.
Let's do it. It's gonna be awesome.
It is.
Yeah, podcasting's fun.
Speaking of
So.
SpaceX,
Yeah, speaking of SpaceX.
did you buy a seat on one of the many different companies that are now taking? I think I read.
I
that
had
you could-
one, but when I
$50 million for a seat if you want to go to the edge of space.
Yeah. When I saw the heat that Bezos was getting, I pulled out. So, but it is fascinating. And I love what
Suborbital.
you say. What?
Suborbital.
Right.
They didn't actually reach outer space.
Paxton Blue. They
No,
just launched.
Stop. It's called Blue Origin.
Kevin, why don't you talk about the difference of the philosophy of Blue Origin and SpaceX? Because I think this is fascinating.
Man, we are getting into it, aren't we? I think we're running out of time for one, but I will because you asked.
This is just a teaser for next
This
time.
is a teaser for next time.
What do you mean a teaser?
This is a teaser.
He's gonna
Are we going to talk about
because these two
extraterrestrial life?
philosophies, no pun intended, are going to be a great launching point to go into the space.
So why don't we
Space-
just save it and talk about this as another episode?
Well, let me just tease it, and then we'll talk about it
Because you two arm wrestle.
in another episode. And I learned this from
He's
Tim,
been doing my
so-
daily lift. I
Yeah.
can't wrestle with him.
My emotional muscles.
Your soul muscles are so
Strong.
good.
Yes, I'm encouraged.
He's been taking soul days.
So, okay, the two differing philosophies, the three if you want to count Richard Branson. He's just in it to have fun.
And
Uh,
self seats. Although he's doing good stuff with it.
Sure,
thought
I love
isn't he
him.
doing
He's
so
just,
Jude St. Isn't it
St. Jude,
St.
yeah.
Jude's is getting it? So
Yeah.
$50 million a seat.
That's
$200
awesome. I didn't
million
know that.
dollars. I
That's
mean,
really
come on.
cool. That might be the most meaningful thing
It might be.
out of all of them. But SpaceX, their goal is to make life multiplanetary. So they're going to build societies on Mars, the first planet where they're going to colonize. That's their goal.
2024.
Elon Musk doesn't think he's going to be alive to see it. Then you got Blue Origin, and their goal is to take all carbon-emitting manufacturing and move it to extraterrestrial spaces. Is that right?
That is.
Did I
That
say
seems so impossible.
so all
it
industry
seems
will happen.
ridiculous.
Not in this. I mean, what is?
But you know,
We'll
I bet
talk-
somebody
next
once.
time we'll talk about which
but
one.
I bet somebody once said that about one day we're going to be up in the clouds and fly.
right.
One day we're going to go to the moon.
No,
And
I just-
how
the
many
way you
people
think.
told them
I
that's
didn't mean
impossible?
I didn't mean you can't do it. I just mean getting everybody here who does any form of manufacture producing to agree to
Right.
move it all
To
extraterrestrial.
me, life on
versus
Mars
local.
seems more impossible.
Huh?
To me, life on Mars seems more impossible.
What an interesting. But that's why I want to talk about
What-
that
why don't
close
we
to the
just
COVID
talk about
thing.
this in another episode?
Because COVID shadows all the. There's some big stuff going on
Yeah,
right now.
Pentagon
It
has
is.
announced UFOs. Tom DeLonge from Blink-182 has spent the last 5 years
Oh
through
my
To the
gosh.
Stars trying to get people to realize that the government has been doing this. And finally, the Pentagon
And
comes out
nothing
with this.
came out.
But COVID was a big conspiracy theory, so now we don't know anything about all the aliens that are already here.
So thank you for listening to this episode of the X Podcast.
We're gonna talk about
catch us
all
next
things
week.
extraterrestrial
Catch
next
us next
episode.
week. We're
Can we do that?
gonna
I have
get
been
into the
studying.
middle of
Email
all
us and
this
tell us if
stuff.
aliens are real.
Email us
Oh.
your experience with aliens, and we love you. Like, subscribe, share, follow. Man,
Funny episode.
we're just so happy you're here with us. So we'll see you next week.